how cloud and mobile had an impact on the industry, I see AI become the next one. It's going to be impactful each and every life cycle of software industry. It's just as initial stage, people are figuring out what to do. From my interaction and what I do in my free time with generative AI to change this SDLC process in a meaningful way, I see there will be a profound impact on what we do in a software, from gathering requirements until deploying that software into customers and post support into a life cycle will have a meaningful impact. What does that mean? Cheaper product developments, quality deliverables, and having good customer service. What does it bring over a period of time? It will be a trade-off, but that's where I think it's heading at this point of time. Some folks have started realizing injecting their SDLC process into a generative AI in some shape and form to make that better.
Hi everyone, this is Kovid back with another episode of groCTO podcast. And today with us, we have a very special guest, Mr. Venkat Rangasamy. He's the Director of Engineering at Oracle. He is the advisor at HBR Advisory Council, where he's helping HBR create content on leadership and management. He comes with 18 plus years of engineering and leadership experience. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Venkat. Welcome.
Yep, likewise. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss on some of the hot topic what we have. I'm pleasure to be here.
Great, Venkat. So I think there is a lot to talk about what's going on in the engineering landscape. And just for the audience, today's topic is around how AI is impacting the overall engineering landscape. And Venkat, coming from that space with an immense experience and exposure, I think there would be a lot of insights coming in from your end. But before we move on to that section, I would love to know a little bit more about you. Our audience would also love to know a little bit more about you. So anything that you would like to share from your personal life, from your professional journey, any hobbies, any childhood memories that shape up who you are today, how things have changed for you. We would love to hear about you. Yeah.
Yep. Um, in my humble background, I started without nothing much in place, where started my career and even studies. I did really on like not even electricity to go through to when we go for studies. That's how I started my study, whole schooling and everything. Then moved on my college. Again, everything scholarship. It's like that's where I started my career. One thing keep motivated me to go in places where different things and explore an opportunity is mentorship. Right, that's something is what shaped me from my school when I don't have a food to eat for a day. Still, the mentorship and people who help me is what I do today. With that context, why I'm passionate about the generative AI and other areas where I connect the dots. Usually, we used to have mentorship where people will help you, push you, take you in the right direction where you want to be in the different challenges they put together, right? Over a period of time, the mentorship evolved. Hey, I started with a physical mentor. Hey, this is how the handhold you, right? Each and every step of the way what you do. Then when your career move along, then that handholding become little off. Like it become like more of like instructions. Hey, this is how you need to do, get it done, right? The more you grow, even it'll be abstracted. The one piece what I miss is having the handholding mentorship, right? Even though you grow your career, long run, you need something to be handholding you to progress along the way as needed. I see one thing, it's motivated me to be part of the generative AI and see what is going on as it could be another mentor for you to shape your roles and responsibility, your career, how do you want to proceed, bounce your ideas, and see where you want to go from there on the problem what you have, right? In the context of the work-related stuff. Um, how you can as a person you can shape your career is something I'm vested interested in people to be successful. In the long run, that's my passion to make people be successful. The part what I gone through, I just want to help people in a way to make them successful. That's my belief. I think pulling like 10 to 100, how many people you can pull it out of the way when you grow is equally important. It's just not your growth yourself, being part of that whole ecosystem bring everybody or uplift everybody's career is equally important. I'm passionate about that, and I'm happy to do that. In my way, people comes in. I want to make sure we grow together and make them successful. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's because of your humble background and the hardships that you have seen in the early of your childhood and while growing up. Uh, you share that passion, and you want to help other folks to
Yeah.
grow and evolve in their journeys. But the biggest problem, like when I see with people today, is they lack that empathy and they lack that motivation to help
Yep.
people. Why do you think it's there, and how one can really overcome this? Because in my foundation, in my fundamental beliefs, we as humans are here to give back to the community, give back to this world, and that's the
Yep.
best feeling that I have also experienced in my life over the last few years. I am not sure how to instill that in people who are lacking that motivation to do so. In your
Yep.
experience, how do you see, how do you want to inspire people to inspire others?
Yeah. No, it's like it goes both ways, right? When you try to bring people and make them better is where you can grow yourself. And it become like last 5 to 10 years, the whole industry become like really mechanics. Like the expectation went so much, the breathing space. We don't have breathing space. Hey, I want to chase my next, chasing the next one. We leave the bottom food chain like, hey, bring the food chain entirely with you until you see the taste of it in one product building. Bringing entire food chain to the ecosystem to bring them successful is what make your team end of day. If you start seeing the value for that, people start spending more time on growing other people, where they will make you successful. It's important. And that food chain, if it broke, or you kind of keep the food chain outside of your career progression or growth, that's not actual growth, because one point of time you get the roadblocks, right? If that
Yes.
point of time your complete food chain is broken, right? Similar way your career, the whole team break chain it's completely broke. It's hard to bring them back, get the product launch at the time what you want to do. It's about building a trust, bring them up to speed, make them part of you is what you have to do. Make yourself successful. Once you started seeing that in building of products, that will be the model. I think the people will follow. The part is you rightly pointed out, empathy, right? Have some empathy, right? Career it can be can it can go its own progress, but don't squeeze too much to make it like I want to be like. It won't happen like in a timely manner, like every 6 months and a year. Now it takes its own course of action. Go with this and make it happen, right? There are ups and downs in careers. Don't think like every quarter and every year my career should be successful. No, that's not the way it works. Then there is no way you see a failure in your career, right? That's not a way equilibrium is. If that happen, everybody becomes zero. That's not a point, right? Everything in a context of how do you bring uplift people is equally important. I think people should start focusing more on the empathy and other stuff than just bringing as a IC contributor. Then you want to be successful in your own role, be an IC contributor. Then don't be a professional manager bringing your whole. There is a chain under you and trust you and build you their career on top of your growth. Right, that's important. When you have that responsibility, be meaningful. How do you bring them and uplift them is equally important.
Cool. I think thanks a lot for this sweet and real intro about yourself. We get to
Yep.
know you a little more now. And with that, I'm sorry, but I was stalking you on LinkedIn from some time, and I see that you have been passionately working with different startups and companies also, right?
Yeah.
In the space of AI. So, with this note, I think let's move on to our main section,
Sure.
where we would be interested in knowing what kind of ideas and thoughts are encompassing this AI landscape now, where
Yep.
engineering is changing on day in day out. So let's move on to our main section, how AI is impacting or changing the engineering landscape. So starting with your advisories and your startups that you're working with, what are the latest things that are going on in the market you are associated with, and how is technology getting impacted there?
Here is what the good analogy. I just want to give some history background about how AI is getting mainstream, and people are not quite realizing what's happening around us, right? The part is, I think 2010, when we started presenting cloud computing to folks in a banking industry. I used to work for banking customers. People really laugh at it. Hey, my data will be with me. I don't think it'll move anytime closer to cloud or anything. It'll be within on from, it is not going to change, right? But over a period of time, cloud made it easy. And any startups who build an applications, no need to set up any infrastructure or anything because it gives easy way to do it. Just put your card, your infrastructure up and running in a couple of hours, right? That revolutionized a lot the way we deploy and manage our applications. The second pivotal moment in our history is mobile apps, right? After that, you see the application dominance was with enterprise most of the time. Over a period of time, when mobile got introduced, the distribution channels became easier to reach out to end users, right? Then a lot of billion-dollar unicorns like Uber, Spotify, everything got built out. That's a second big revolution happening. After mobile, I would say there are foundations happen like big data and data analytics. There is some part of ML. It over a period of time it happened. But revolutionizing the whole aspect of the softwares like how cloud and mobile had an impact on the industry, I see AI become the next one. The reason is, um, as of now, the softwares are built in a way it's traditional SDLC practice set up a long time. What's happening around now is that practice is getting questioned and changed a bit in the context of how are we going to develop a software, make them cheaper, more productive, and quality deliverables. We used to do in 90s, if you had worked on that time, right, COBOL and other things, we used to do something called extreme programming. Peer programming and extreme programming is you have an assistant, you sit together, write together a bunch of instructions, right? That's how we start coding and COBOL and other thing to validate your procedures. The extreme programming went away and we started doing IDE-based suggestions and other things for developers. But now what's happening is it's coming 360 and everything is how generative AI is influencing the whole aspect of software industry is it's going to be impactful each and every life cycle of software industry. And it just as initial stage, people are figuring out what to do. From my interaction and what I do in my free time with generative AI to change this SDLC process in a meaningful way, I see there will be a profound impact on what we do in a software as a software development, from gathering requirements until deploying deploying that software into customers and post support. The end-to-end life cycle will have a meaningful impacts. What does that mean? It'll have cheaper product developments, quality deliverables, and having good customer service. What does it brings over a period of time? It'll be a trade-off, but that's where I think it's heading at this point of time. Some folks have started realizing injecting their SDLC process into a generative AI in some shape and form to make that better. We can go in detail of like how each phases it'll look like, but that's what I see from industry point of view, how folks are approaching generative AI. It's a very conservative. I understand because that's how we started with cloud and other areas, but it's going to be mainstream, but it's going to be like each and every aspect of it will be relooked, and the change management point of view in a couple of years, the way we see an SDLC will be quite different than what we have today. That's my belief and what I see in industry. That's how it's getting there. Yeah. Especially the software development itself, it's like eating your own dog food, right? It happened for a long time. This is the first time we do a software development. That whole development itself, it's going to be disturbed in a way. It'll be more profound impact on the whole product development. And it'll be cheaper. The product go to market will be much cheaper. Like how mobile revolutionized, there'll be next evolution will be on using generative AI like a capability to make your product cheaper and go to market in a short term. That's going to happen eventually.
Right. I think this is bound to happen. Even I believe
Yeah.
so. it is already there. I mean, it's not like we're talking about real future. It's almost there.
Yep.
It's happening right now. But what do you think on the point where this technology, which is right now not hosted locally, right? We are talking
Mhm.
of implementing LLMs locally into your servers, into your
Yep.
systems. How do you see that piece evolving? Because lately I have been seeing a lot of concerns from a lot of companies and
Mhm.
leaders around the security aspect, around
Yep.
the IP aspect, where you are putting all your code into a third party server to generate new code, right? You can't stop developers from doing that because they've already started doing it earlier.
Yep.
The method was going to Stack Overflow, taking up some code from there, going to GitHub repositories or GitLab repositories, taking up some code. But now this is happening from a single point of source, which is cloud hosted, and you have to share your code with third parties. That has
Yep.
started becoming a concern. So, though the whole landscape is going to change, as you said, but I think there is a specific direction in which things are moving, right? Very
Yep.
soon, people have realized that there is an aspect of security and IP that comes along with using such tools into the system. So, how
Yep.
do you see that piece progressing in the market right now? And what are the things, what are the products, what are the services that are coming up impacting this landscape?
It's a good question, actually. We, after a couple of years, right, what the realization even I came up with now, the services which is hosted on a cloud, like a public LLMs, right, which you can use an LLM to generate some of these aspects. From a POC point of view, it looks great. You can see it, what it's coming your way. But when it comes to real product, making product in a production environments is not well defined because, as I said, right, security, audit, compliance, code IP, right? And your compliance team, it's about who own the IP part of it, right? It's those aspects as well as having the code, your IP goes to some plain public LLM, and it's kind of a compromise where there is some concern around that area, and people are started and enterprises have started looking upon something to make it within their workspace. End of the day, from a developer point of view, the experience what developer has, it has to be within that IDE itself, right? That's where it becomes successful. And keeping outside of that IDE is not fully baked in, or it's not fully baked in part of the developer lifecycle, which means the tool sets, it has to be as if like it's running in local, right? If you ask me, like, is it doable? For sure, yes. If you ask me a year back, I'd have been said no. Running your own LLM within a laptop like another IDE, like how do you run an IDE, is going to be really challenging if you ask me a year back. But today, I was doing some recent experiment on this, similar challenges, right? Where corporates and other folks, then any big enterprises, right? Any security or any talk to a startup founders, the major roadblock is I didn't want to share my IP or code outside of my workspace. Then bringing that experience into your workspace is equally important. With that context, I was doing some research with one of the POC project with, hey, bringing your Code Llama. Code Llama is one of the LLM, public LLM, trained by Meta for different languages. Right? It just, at the end of the day, the smaller the LLMs, the better on these kind of tasks. Right? You don't need to have 700 billion, 70 billion. Those parameters it's irrelevant at this point of coding, because coding is all about bunch of instructions which need to be trained, right? And on top of it, your custom coding and templates. Just a coding example. Now, how to solve this problem? Set up your own local LLM. I've tested and benchmarked in both Mac and PC. Mac is phenomenally well. I won't see any difference. You should be able to set up your LLM. There is a product called Olama. Olama is where you can use set up your LLM within your workspace as if it's running like running in your laptop. There is nothing going out of your laptop. Set up that and go to your IDE, create a simple plugin. I created a VC plugin, Visual Source plugin, connected to your local LLM, because Olama will give you like a REST API. Just connect it.
Mm.
Now Now, within your IDE, whatever code is there, that is going to talk to your LLM, which means every developer can have their own LLM. And as long as you have a right trained data set for basic language, Java, Python, and other thing, it works phenomenally well because it's already trained for it. If you want to have a custom coding and custom templating, you just need to train that aspect of it, of your coding standards. Once you
Got it.
train, keep it in your local, just run like part of an IDE. It's a whole integrated experience which runs within developer workspaces is what scalable and long run. If anything, if it goes out of that, which we have seen that many times, right? Past couple of years, even though we say our LLMs are good enough to do larger tasks in the coding side, if you want to analyze the complete file, if you send it to a public LLM with some services available through some coding and other testing services, what we have, the challenge is number of the size of the tokens what you can send back, right? There is a limit in the number of tokens, which means if you want to analyze the entire project repository what you have, it's not possible with the way these all set up now in the public side, right? Which means you need to have your own LLM within the workspace, which can work in it's like it's part of your workspace. That's what I would say. Like, how do you run your database? Run it part of your workspace, just make it happen. That is possible. And that's going to be the future. I don't think going any public LLM or setting up is not a viable option, but having the pipeline set up, it like patching or giving a database to your developers, runs and local, have that set up where everybody can use it within their local workspace itself. Is going to be the future, and the tools and tool sets around that is really happening. And it's at the phase where in a year time from here, you won't even see that's a big thing. It's just like part of your skill. Just set up and connect your whatever source code editor you have, just connect it to NLM, just run with it. I see that's a feature for a coding point of view. Other
Got it.
SDLCs have different nuance to it, but coding, I think it should be pretty straightforward in a year time frame. That's going to be the normal practice.
So I think from what I understand of your opinion is that the most of the market would be shifting towards their local LLM models, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the future. But I'm not sure if I'm having a right analogy here. But let's talk about something like GitHub, which is cloud sourced, and one
Mm.
which is in house, right?
Yeah.
Uh, the companies always had that option of having it locally, right? But
Mm.
today, I'm not sure of the percentage, how many teams are using a cloud based GitHub and locally operated GitHub. But
Yeah.
in that situation, they are hosting their code on a third party, right? The code is
Correct. Yep.
the market didn't shape that way. If we look at it from that perspective of code security and IP and everything,
Mm.
uh, why do you think that this would happen for local LMs? Like, wouldn't the market be fragmented? Like large scale organizations who have grown beyond a size have that mindset. Now let's have something in house, and they would
Yep.
put it out for the local LMs. Whereas the small companies who are establishing themselves, and then, I mean, can it not be the similar path that happened for how you manage your code earlier?
It is very well possible. The only difference between GitHub and LLM is the GitHub is more like an artifact management, right? When you have your IP, you just keeping it's kind of first repository to keep everything safe, right? It's just with the versioning, branching, and other stuff.
Right.
The only problem there related to security is who's um, is there any vulnerability within your code, or is that your repository is secure, right? That is kind of a complaint, or everything need to be there. As long as that's satisfied, we're good with that. But from an LLM lifecycle point of view, the IP, what we can't so far in a software code is a code. What you write as a code, and the business logic associated to that code, and the customizations happen around that is what your IP all about. Now, as of now, those IPs are patent, which means, hey, this is what my patent all about. This is my IP all about. Now, you've started giving your IP data to a public LLM will be challenging because end of the day, any data goes through, it can be trained its own using the data set, what user is going through. Any LLM can be trained using the data set. If you ask me, like every application is critical where you cannot share an IP, not really. Building simple web pages or having REST services is okay because those things, I don't think any IP is bound to have. Where you have the core business of running your own workflows or your own calculations, and those is where it's going to be more tough to use any public LLM. And another challenge is what I see in a community is the small startups, right? They won't do much customization on the frameworks. Like they take Java means Java, right? Node means Node. They take Reacts, just plain vanilla, just run through end to end, right? Their goal is to get the product up to market quicker, right? In the initial stage up when we have 5 10 developers. But when the team grows, what had happened is every enterprise it's bound to happen. I've gone through a couple of cycle of that. You started putting together a framework around the whole standardization of coding, the scaffolding, the creating your test cases, the whole life cycle will have enforced your own standard on top of it. Because to make it consistent across different developers, and because the team become 5 to 1,000 to 10,000, it's hard to manage if you don't have standards around it, right? That's where you have challenges using public LLM because you will have challenges of having your own code with your own standards, which is not trained by LLM, even though it's a simple application. Even simple application will have a challenge those point of time. But from a basic point of view, still you can use it. But again, you will have a challenge of how big a file you can analyze using public LLM is the one challenge you might have it. But your answer to your question, yes, it will be hybrid. It won't be 100% saying everybody need to have their own LLM trained and set up. Initial stages, it's totally fine to use it because that's how it's going to go. Because startup companies don't have much resources to put together to build their own frameworks. But once they get in a shape where they want to have that standardized practices, like how they build their own frameworks and other thing, similar way, one point of time, they want to bring it up on their own setup and run with it. For large enterprise, for sure, they're going to have their own developer productivity suite, like what they did with their frameworks and other platforms. But for a small startup start with, they might use public, but long run, eventually over a period of time, that might get changed. And
Got it. Got it.
the benefit of getting hybrid is where you'll make your product quick to market, right? Because end of the day, that's important for startup. It's not about getting everything the way they want to set up. It's important, but at the same time, you need to go to market. The amount of money what you have, where you want to prioritize your money. If I take it that way, still code generation and the whole LLM will play a crucial role on the development. But how do you use and what third party they can use? Of course, there will be some choices where I think in the future, what I see is even these LLMs will be set up and trained for your own data in a more of a hybrid cloud instead of public cloud, which means your LLM, what you trained in a hybrid cloud, have a visibility only to your code. It's not a public LLM. It's more of private LLM trained and deployed on a cloud can be used by your team. Yeah. That'll be the hybrid approach in the long run. It's going to scale. Yep.
Got it. Great. With that, I think just to put out some actionable advice for all the engineering leaders out there who are going through this phase of the AI transformation. Anything as an actionable advice for those leaders from your end, like what should they focus on right now, how they should make that transition? And I'm talking about companies where these engineering leaders are working, which are Series B, Series A, Series C kind of a bracket. I know this is a huge bracket, but what kind of advice you would give to these companies because they're in the growing phase of the whole cycle of a company, right? So what should they focus on right now at this stage?
Here is where some stat. I was talking to some couple of ventures recently about similar topic. How the landscape is going to change as a software development, right? one thing came up in that call frequently was cheaper to develop products, go to market faster, and the expectation around software development has become changing quite a while, right? In the sense, the expectation around software development and the cost associated to that software development is where is going to is going to be changing drastically. Same time, be clear about your strategy. It's not like we can change 50% of productivity overnight, no. But at the same time, keep it realistic, right? Hey, this is what I want to make. Here is my charter to go through. Start from ideations to go to market. Here are the meaningful places where I can introduce something which can help the developers and other roles like PMs, could be even post support, right? Have a meaningful strategy. Just don't go blank with the traditional way what you have, because your investors and advisors start going to ask questions because they're going to
Yeah.
see a similar pattern from others, right? Because that's how others have started looking into it. I would say proactively start going through that landscape and map your process to see where we can inject some of the meaningful area where it can have impacts, right? And have be practical about it. Don't think, don't give a commitment. Hey, I make 50% cheaper on my development, and overnight you might burn, because that's not reality. But just in my unit test cases and areas where I can build a quality products within this money, and I can guarantee that can be an industry benchmark. I can do that with introducing some of these practices like a test cases, post customer support, writing code in some aspects, right? Um, that is what you need to set up when you started going for a venture fund, and have a relook of your SDLC process. That's important. And see how do you inject, and in the long term, that'll help you. And it'll be iterative, but end of the day, see, we gone from waterfall to agile to many other paradigm within agile over a period of time. But the one thing what we good at doing is in a software as an industry, adapting to a new trend, right? This could be another trend. Keep an eye on it. Make it something where you can make some meaningful impact on your products. I would say before your investor comes and talked about, hey, can you do optimization here? I see another my portfolio company does this. It's better to start yourself, be collaborative, and see if we can make something meaningful and learn across, share it in the community where other founders can leverage something from you. It will be great. That's my advice
Okay.
to any startup founders who can make a difference. Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Venkat. Thank you so much for this insightful information about how to navigate the situation of changing landscape due to AI. So it was really interesting. We would love to have you one another time on this show. I am sure you have more than these insights to share with us. But I think in the interest of time, we'll have to close it for today. And we'll see you soon again.
See you.